Zaxthor slouched in his ergonomically designed, anti-gravity chair, his three eye stalks drooping with boredom as Professor Glorpnax droned on about the intricacies of quantum entanglement. The Glorpian's gelatinous body quivered with excitement as he lectured, completely oblivious to the fact that half the class had entered a state of hibernation. And that, my dear students, Glorpnax burbled, his vocal sacs inflating with pride, is why quantum entanglement is the cornerstone of modern interstellar communication. A chorus of half-hearted chirps, clicks, and bubbles filled the air as the alien students feigned interest. Zaxthor glanced around the classroom, his gaze settling on the only creature that seemed genuinely engaged, the Deathworlder. Ah yes, the Deathworlder. Sarah Jenkins, to be precise. The human transfer student who had arrived at Galactic University just a few cycles ago, causing quite the stir among the faculty and student body. With her solid bone structure, intimidating height, and the ability to survive in gravity that would crush most species into paste, she was a constant source of fascination and terror. Sarah sat at the front of the class, furiously scribbling notes with a primitive writing implement she called a pen. Zaxthor couldn't fathom why she didn't just use a neural interface like everyone else. Then again, there were a lot of things about humans he couldn't fathom. As the professor's lesson mercifully came to an end, Glorpnax's final words snapped Zaxthor out of his Sarah-induced reverie. "For your homework," the professor announced, his body rippling with what passed for excitement in Glorpian culture. "I want you to solve this simple quantum mechanics problem. It should be a breeze for such brilliant minds." A collective groan echoed through the classroom, causing several crystalline beings to vibrate dangerously close to their resonant frequency. Zaxthor's tentacles curled in despair as he glanced at the holographic display. The simple problem looked about as simple as unraveling the space-time continuum with a pair of tweezers. As the students filed out of the classroom, Zaxthor couldn't help but notice Sarah's confident stride. She even had a hint of a smile on her face. Unbelievable. Did the Deathworlder actually find this enjoyable? Curiosity got the better of him, and Zaxthor found himself floating towards Sarah. "Excuse me, Sarah of Earth," he began, his translator struggling to mimic human speech patterns. "But you seem unnaturally pleased about this assignment. Are you perhaps suffering from a cranial parasite that affects your judgment?" Sarah turned to face him, and Zaxthor instinctively recoiled. Those teeth, so many of them, and so sharp. He'd heard rumors that humans used them for masticating solid matter. The very thought made his digestive sacs quiver. "Oh, hey, Zaxthor," Sarah replied, her voice unnervingly cheerful. "Nah, no parasites here. Well, unless you count the billions of bacteria in my gut, but they're supposed to be there." Zaxthor's epidermis paled at the thought. Billions of microorganisms? Insider, voluntarily? Deathworlders were truly beyond comprehension. "I'm just excited about the homework," Sarah continued, oblivious to Zaxthor's internal crisis. "This kind of problem is right up my alley. Back on Earth, we'd call this a fun little brain teaser." Fun? Brain teaser? Zaxthor's universal translator must be malfunctioning. There was no way those words could be used to describe the eldritch horror that was their quantum mechanics homework. "Sarah of Earth," Zaxthor said slowly, choosing his words carefully. "I believe your translator may be faulty. Perhaps you misunderstood the assignment. This is a highly complex quantum mechanics problem that even our most advanced AI struggle with. It is not, as you say, a fun little brain teaser." Sarah laughed, a sound that sent nearby gelatinous students quivering for cover. "Oh, Zaxthor, you're hilarious. Trust me, I understood the assignment perfectly. In fact, I'll probably knock it out tonight after dinner. Speaking of which, want to join me in the cafeteria? I heard they're serving something called Arcturian Mega Slug Surprise. Sounds delish." Before Zaxthor could politely decline or impolitely flee in terror, Sarah had already started walking towards the cafeteria, her long legs carrying her at a pace that would leave most species in the dust. Zaxthor found himself floating along in her wake, partly out of curiosity and partly because he was too stunned to do anything else. As they entered the cafeteria, a hush fell over the diverse crowd of alien students. All eyes, stalks, and sensory appendages turned to watch the Deathworlder and her reluctant companion make their way to the food dispensers. Sarah seemed oblivious to the attention, chatting away about Earth cuisine and something called pizza that sounded absolutely horrifying. "So anyway," Sarah was saying as she punched in her meal choice, "back home, we'd often order pizza during all-night study sessions. Nothing beats a good pepperoni and mushroom when you're knee-deep in quantum field theory." Zaxthor nodded politely, trying not to show his revulsion at the thought of voluntarily ingesting fungal growth. He watched in morbid fascination as Sarah's meal materialized a writhing mass of tentacles and eye stalks drowning in a viscous, purple sauce. "Oh wow, this looks great," Sarah exclaimed, prodding the still-moving creature with her eating utensil. "You know, it kind of reminds me of calamari. I wonder if it tastes similar." Without hesitation, she skewered a particularly lively tentacle and popped it into her mouth. The entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable violent rejection of the alien food. But to everyone's shock and Zaxthor's horror, Sarah simply chewed thoughtfully before swallowing. Not bad," she declared. A bit chewier than I expected, and it's got a weird aftertaste like, I don't know, battery acid and cinnamon. But overall, pretty good. How's yours, Zaxthor? Zaxthor looked down at his own meal, a simple nutrient paste that was standard fare for his species. It suddenly seemed very boring compared to Sarah's adventurous choice. It is. Adequate, he managed to say, still in disbelief at what he had just witnessed. As they ate, or in Zaxthor's case, absorbed, Sarah continued to chat about the homework assignment. You know, this problem reminds me of something we covered in my advanced physics class back on Earth. Have you guys studied the Heisenberg-Schrödinger-Einstein-Rosen theorem yet? Zaxthor's eye stalk swiveled in confusion. I am not familiar with this theorem. Is it a new discovery? Sarah laughed again, causing a nearby Veluxian to vibrate in sympathetic resonance. New? Nah, it's pretty old news where I'm from. We usually cover it in high school. It's just a basic principle that combines quantum superposition, entanglement, and wormhole theory. Super useful for solving problems like our homework. Zaxthor felt his brain beginning to short-circuit. High school? Basic principle? What kind of monstrous education system did Earth have? He was about to ask for clarification when a commotion at the cafeteria entrance caught their attention. Professor Glorpnax had just entered, his gelatinous form rippling with agitation. He spotted Sarah and Zaxthor and quickly oozed over to their table, leaving a trail of confused students in his wake. Ah, Sarah of Earth, the professor burbled, his vocal sacs inflating rapidly. I'm so glad I found you. There seems to be a slight issue with the homework assignment I gave earlier. Sarah tilted her head, a gesture that Zaxthor had learned indicated curiosity in humans. Oh, what's the problem, Professor? Glorpnax's body rippled in what might have been embarrassment. Well, you see, it appears that the quantum mechanics problem I assigned was not quite as simple as I had initially thought. In fact, our university's main quantum computer has been working on it for the past hour and has yet to produce a solution. A murmur of relief spread through the cafeteria as other students eavesdropped on the conversation. Zaxthor felt his own wave of relief wash over him. At least now he wouldn't have to admit defeat in the face of an easy problem. But Sarah's reaction was not what anyone expected. Oh, is that all? She said, reaching into her bag and pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. I actually finished it while I was waiting for my food. Here you go. She handed the paper to the stunned professor, who took it with a trembling pseudopod. The entire cafeteria watched in disbelief as Glorpnax's eyes, all 17 of them, widened in shock. This is correct, he whispered, his voice barely audible. And you solved it? With pen and paper? In minutes. Sarah shrugged, a gesture that sent ripples of fear through the watching aliens. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Like I was telling Zaxthor, it's pretty similar to stuff we did back home. Although I have to admit, the bit about accounting for quantum fluctuations in a variable gravity field was a nice touch. Made it a bit spicier than your average homework problem. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Students were frantically messaging their friends, some were trying to get a look at Sarah's solution, and a few had simply fainted from the shock. Professor Glorpnax looked like he was about to melt into a puddle of confusion and awe. Zaxthor, for his part, was having an existential crisis. If this was what passed for a challenging homework assignment on Earth, what other terrifying knowledge did these Deathworlders possess? He suddenly felt very small and very, very out of his depth. Sarah, oblivious to the pandemonium she had caused, turned back to her meal. So anyway, Zaxthor, as I was saying about pizza, oh, are you okay? You're looking a little pale. Well, paler than usual. Zaxthor managed to pull himself together enough to respond. I am fine, Sarah of Earth. I am simply processing the implications of what has just occurred. Sarah grinned, her terrifying teeth on full display. Oh, you mean the homework thing? Don't worry about it. I'm sure you guys have plenty of stuff that would stump me. Like, I still can't figure out how to use the quantum toilet in my dorm room. Half the time I think I'm flushing myself into an alternate dimension. As Sarah laughed at her own joke, Zaxthor couldn't help but marvel at the strange creature before him. Here was a being from a planet so harsh, so unforgiving, that it casually solved problems that stumped the greatest minds in the galaxy. And yet, she struggled with basic plumbing. The contradiction was mind-boggling. The rest of the meal passed in a blur of activity. News of Sarah's feat spread through the university like wildfire, or perhaps more accurately, like a quantum wave function collapsing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. By the time they finished eating, a small crowd of students and faculty had gathered around their table, peppering Sarah with questions about Earth's educational system and scientific achievements. Sarah, for her part, seemed to be enjoying the attention. She regaled her audience with tales of Earth's scientific history, dropping names like Einstein, Hawking, and Musk as casually as one might discuss the weather. With each new revelation, the crowd's awe and terror grew. Wait, squeaked a trembling Zygonian, its antennae twitching nervously. Are you saying that your species achieved faster than light travel using principles discovered by scientists who lived before you even left your own planet's atmosphere? Sarah nodded enthusiastically. Oh yeah, the theory was all there. We just needed to wait for our technology to catch up. Heck, some of our sci-fi writers had even imagined FTL drives before we'd made it to our own moon. The crowd murmured in disbelief. The idea that mere fiction writers could conceive of such advanced concepts was almost as shocking as Sarah's casual brilliance. As the impromptu Q&A session continued, Zaxter found himself both fascinated and terrified by the glimpses into human culture and intellect that Sarah was providing. It seemed that for every scientific breakthrough the galactic community had achieved, humans had either already theorized it centuries ago or had taken the concept 10 steps further. So, let me get this straight. Zaxter interjected, his curiosity finally overcoming his fear. Your species not only solved complex quantum mechanics problems for fun, but you also created simulations of entire universes for entertainment. Sarah's eyes lit up. Oh, you mean video games? Yeah, those are great. We've been simulating physics in games for ages. There's this one series called Half-Life that actually got some of the quantum mechanics pretty spot on. Of course, that was way back in the 21st century. You should see the stuff we've got now. The gathered aliens exchanged worried glances. A species that could accurately model quantum phenomena for mere amusement was not to be trifled with. Professor Glorp, who had been silently oscillating between awe and existential dread, finally spoke up. Sarah of Earth, I must ask, given your species' clearly advanced understanding of physics and mathematics, why did you choose to study at our humble university? Surely Earth's institutions must be far more rigorous. Sarah's smile softened, and for a moment she looked almost sheepish. Well, to be honest, Professor, I'm not exactly what you'd call a top student back home. Don't get me wrong, I love physics and I'm pretty good at it, but by Earth standards, I'm just average. I came here because I wanted to experience alien cultures and see how the rest of the galaxy approaches science. Plus, she added with a wink, I heard the party scene on Epsilon Eridani was out of this world. The silence that followed was deafening. The idea that this terrifyingly intelligent creature who had casually solved a problem that stumped their most advanced computers was considered merely average on her homeworld was almost too much to bear. Zaxter felt a chill run through his body. If Sarah was average, what were the top human scientists capable of? He suddenly had a new appreciation for why humans were classified as a Class 12 Deathworld species. It wasn't just their physical resilience that made them terrifying, it was their minds. As the crowd slowly dispersed, still murmuring in a mixture of awe and fear, Sarah turned back to Zaxter. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. It's been kind of lonely being the only human on campus. Want to study together sometime? I could help you with quantum mechanics, and maybe you could teach me more about alien biology. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how Glorpians can think without a centralized nervous system. Zaxter found himself agreeing before he could even process the request. Part of him was screaming to flee from this terrifying Deathworlder and her casual brilliance, but a larger part, the part that had driven him to pursue xenobiology in the first place, was intensely curious. What other wonders and horrors could he learn from this human? As they parted ways, Sarah heading off to what she called soccer practice, apparently a form of ritualized combat humans engaged in for fun, Zaxter floated back to his dorm in a daze. His mind was reeling from everything he had learned about humans in just a few short hours. He thought back to the first day Sarah had arrived on campus, how everyone had been so focused on her physical differences, her dense bones, her powerful muscles, her terrifying endurance. They had all missed the true marvel, the human mind. As he settled into his nutrient bath for the night, Zaxter made a decision. He would befriend this human, learn from her, and maybe, just maybe, help bridge the gap between their two species. It would be challenging, possibly even dangerous, but then again, nothing worthwhile was ever easy. And who knew? Maybe he'd even learn to enjoy those terrifying pizza things Sarah kept talking about. As the Galactic University settled into its night cycle, news of Sarah's feat spread like a quantum wave function collapsing across the campus. In dorm rooms, nutrition pods, and hibernation chambers, alien students buzzed, chirped, and telepathically communicated their awe and terror at the implications of what had transpired. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the chaos she'd caused, Sarah was busy demonstrating yet another terrifying human ability: voluntary physical exertion for fun. On a gravity-adjusted field, she and a few other adventurous aliens were engaged in what she called a friendly game of soccer. To the watching crowd, it looked anything but friendly. Sarah darted across the field with speed that made the other players look like they were moving in slow motion. When she kicked the ball, it moved so fast that the Quartzian goalie shattered in shock before managing to reform just in time to see the ball sail past. Woo-hoo, Sarah cheered, pumping her fist in the air. Great game, everyone. Who's up for another round? Her alien teammates, sprawled across the field in various states of exhaustion, could only respond with weak groans and the occasional plea for mercy. As Sarah helped her teammates up carefully, so as not to accidentally rip any limbs off, she noticed Zaxter hovering at the edge of the field, his eye stalks swiveling wildly as he tried to process the controlled chaos he'd just witnessed. Hey, Zaxter, Sarah called out, jogging over to him. The nearby aliens instinctively backed away, still not used to seeing a Deathworlder move at such speeds voluntarily. Come to check out the game. Thor's epidermis rippled in what might have been a nervous laugh. Ah, Sarah of Earth, I was merely observing. This soccer of yours seems quite invigorating. Sarah grinned, wiping sweat from her brow. Oh, it's a blast. You should join us next time. I bet those tentacles of yours would be great for dribbling the ball. The mental image of his delicate tentacles anywhere near that speeding projectile made Thor's chromatophores flash in distress. I appreciate the offer, but perhaps I could participate in a less physical manner. As your people might say, I am more of a brains than brawn type. Sarah's laugh sent a nearby flock of winged aerolians fluttering for cover. Fair enough. Speaking of brains, I was thinking about that quantum mechanics problem from earlier. You know, it got me wondering about some of the practical applications we could explore. Have you guys ever considered using quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication? Thor blinked his eye stalks in confusion, but that's impossible. The no-communication theorem clearly states that quantum entanglement cannot be used to transmit information faster than light. Sarah's eyes twinkled with mischief. Well, that's what we thought too, until Dr. Yamamoto's breakthrough about 5 years ago. Turns out if you combine quantum entanglement with a specially calibrated tachyon field, you can create a sort of quantum telegraph that bypasses those old limitations. It's pretty neat stuff. Thor felt his brain threatening to short-circuit again. Tachyon field. But tachyons are purely theoretical particles. They can't exist in real space-time. Sarah shrugged, a gesture that Thor was beginning to associate with impending existential crises. Yeah, that's what the textbooks used to say. But then we figured out how to generate them in controlled conditions. It was a real game-changer for interstellar communication. You guys haven't heard about this. The look of utter bewilderment on Thor's face was all the answer she needed. Sarah's expression softened. Oh, I'm sorry, sometimes I forget that not every species is as, let's say, enthusiastic about pushing the boundaries of physics as we are. I hope I'm not coming across as a know-it-all or anything. Thor quickly reassured her, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. No, your knowledge is impressive. Terrifying, yes, but impressive. I find myself both anxious and eager to learn more about your species' scientific achievements. Sarah beamed, her smile somehow managing to be both friendly and utterly terrifying. That's great. I'd love to share more. And hey, I'm sure there's tons of stuff you could teach me too. Like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how your species reproduces by mitosis. That's got to be way more efficient than our method. As they walked and floated back towards the dorms, Sarah and Thor fell into a discussion that ranged from quantum physics to xenobiology, from the intricacies of faster-than-light travel to the peculiarities of alien digestive systems. With each new topic, Thor found himself alternating between awe at the depth of human scientific knowledge and relief at the occasional gaps in their understanding. Wait, Thor interjected at one point. You mean to tell me that humans haven't figured out how to manipulate gravitational fields at a quantum level? Sarah laughed. Nah, we're still working on that one. I mean, we can generate artificial gravity fields and all, but fine-tuning them at the quantum scale, that's still giving our best minds a run for their money. Is that something your species has cracked? Thor felt a surge of pride. Finally, an area where his civilization was ahead, indeed. It's a fundamental principle in our spacecraft design. I could show you some of the equations if you're interested. Are you kidding? I'd love that Sarah's enthusiasm was infectious. Maybe we could set up a little cultural exchange. You teach me about quantum gravity manipulation, and I could introduce you to some of our more unusual scientific approaches. Ever heard of using black holes as compute engines? Thor's eye stalks crossed in confusion. Black holes as compute engines, but how? The gravitational singularity would destroy any physical computer. Sarah's grin turned mischievous. Who said anything about physical computers? But that's a whole other can of worms. Tell you what, why don't we grab some dinner and I can explain it over food? I'm starving after that soccer game. As they made their way to the cafeteria, Thor found himself marveling at the strange turn his life had taken. Here he was, casually discussing universe-altering scientific concepts with a Deathworlder who could probably bench-press a small shuttle. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly fascinating all at once. The cafeteria was abuzz with activity when they arrived, but a hush fell over the room as Sarah entered. Word of her quantum mechanics feat had clearly spread. Aliens of all species watched in a mixture of awe and fear as she approached the food synthesizers. What to have, Sarah mused, scrolling through the menu. Ooh, how about some Aldebaranian flame-grilled steak? I've always wanted to try that. The nearby Aldebaranian students blanched, quite a feat given their naturally pale complexion at the thought of a human consuming their sacred animal. But before anyone could protest, Sarah had already placed her order. As the synthesizer whirred to life, Zaxthor couldn't help but ask Sarah, "Aren't you concerned about the potential biohazards of consuming alien cuisine? Surely your digestive system isn't adapted to such exotic nutrients." Sarah waved off his concern as she collected her plate of sizzling, slightly glowing meat. "Nah, it's fine. Human stomachs are pretty adaptable. Plus, I took some universal digestive enzymes before I left Earth. They help break down pretty much anything. Want a bite?" Zaxthor recoiled slightly, his tentacles curling in on themselves. I think I'll stick to my nutrient paste, thank you." As they settled at a table with a respectful distance maintained by the other diners, Sarah dug into her meal with gusto. Zaxthor watched in fascinated horror as she tore into the steak with her terrifyingly efficient teeth. "So," Sarah said between bites, "about those black hole computers. It's actually a pretty cool concept. You see, the event horizon of a black hole can be used as a sort of cosmic supercomputer. By encoding information in the quantum states of particles just outside the event horizon, you can perform calculations at speeds that make our fastest supercomputers look like abacuses." Zaxthor's mind reeled as he tried to process this information, but the computational density required for such calculations, it's beyond anything we've ever conceived. Sarah nodded enthusiastically, seemingly oblivious to the fact that her steak was slightly radioactive. "Exactly. That's what makes it so exciting. We're talking about harnessing the fundamental fabric of space-time itself for computation. It's still mostly theoretical, of course, but we've had some promising results in micro-black hole simulations." As Sarah continued to explain the intricacies of cosmic computation, Zaxthor found himself drawn into a world of scientific possibilities he had never even imagined. The sheer audacity of human scientific endeavors was both thrilling and terrifying. Their discussion ranged far and wide, touching on topics from the manipulation of dark matter for energy production to the potential for time dilation as a method of faster-than-light travel. With each new concept, Zaxthor felt his understanding of the universe expanding, and his certainty about humanity's place in it shrinking. As the night cycle drew to a close and the cafeteria began to empty, Sarah finally seemed to notice the effect she was having on her alien companion. "Hey Zaxthor, you okay? You're looking a little, well, more translucent than usual." Zaxthor pulled himself together, his chromatophores slowly returning to their normal hue. "I am processing, Sarah of Earth. Your species' approach to science is formidable. I find myself wondering how the rest of the galaxy has failed to notice the intellectual titan in our midst." Sarah's laugh was gentler this time, tinged with a hint of something that might have been embarrassment. "Oh, come on, we're not that special. I mean, sure, we've made some cool discoveries, but so has every other species. Heck, I'm still in awe of how your people mastered bioorganic technology. And don't even get me started on the Zygonian psychic internet. That stuff blows my mind." As they left the cafeteria, Sarah walking and Zaxthor floating beside her, a comfortable silence fell between them. The distant stars twinkled in the alien sky, each one a potential frontier for discovery. "You know." "Now," Sarah said softly, her gaze fixed on the heavens. "Back on Earth, we have this saying, the more you know. The more you realize you don't know. I think that's what I love most about science. No matter how much we discover, there's always more out there, waiting to be understood." Zaxthor found himself nodding in agreement, his eye stalk swiveling to take in the cosmic vista. A wise sentiment. Perhaps that is something our species have in common. This drive to understand, to push the boundaries of knowledge. Sarah turned to him, her smile warm and genuine. "Exactly. That's why I'm here, you know. Not just to learn about alien science, but to share what we know, to collaborate. Can you imagine what we could discover if we all worked together?" As they reached the dormitory complex, Zaxthor felt a strange sensation bubbling up inside him. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope for a future where humans and aliens could work side by side, pushing the boundaries of science and exploration. "Sarah Earth," he said, his translator struggling to convey the depth of his emotion. "I believe I would very much like to engage in this cultural exchange you mentioned earlier. Perhaps we could start tomorrow. I could show you some of our quantum gravity equations, and you could explain more about these black hole computers." Sarah's face lit up with excitement. "That sounds awesome. It's a date. I mean, not a date, just you know what, never mind. See you tomorrow, Zaxthor." As Sarah bounded off towards her reinforced high-gravity dorm room, Zaxthor floated back to his own quarters, his mind buzzing with new ideas and possibilities. He had come to Galactic University seeking knowledge, but he had found something far more valuable, a glimpse into a future where the combined intellect of all sapient species could unlock the deepest secrets of the universe. As he settled into his nutrient bath for the night, Zaxthor made a mental note to update his thesis proposal. Something told him that the impact of human scientific paradigms on galactic research methodologies would make for a far more interesting study than his original topic on xenofungal symbiosis. And who knew? Maybe by the end of the semester, he'd even work up the courage to try one of those terrifying pizza things Sarah kept raving about. After all, in the pursuit of knowledge, sometimes you had to take risks. As the lights in his room dimmed to simulate the comfort of a methane swamp at dusk, Zaxthor drifted off to sleep, his dreams filled with quantum equations, black hole computers, and the exciting if slightly terrifying possibilities of human-alien scientific collaboration. Little did he know that across the campus, in her high-gravity dorm room, Sarah was having similar thoughts. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and mentally reviewing the day's events, a slow smile spread across her face. "Oh yeah," she murmured to herself, "this is going to be one heck of a semester." And somewhere in the vast, mysterious universe, the cosmic forces that governed reality seemed to chuckle in agreement. The adventures of Sarah the human and Zaxthor the alien were just beginning, and the galaxy would never be the same.